Greetings, YouTube. Some of you will remember I did a video recently about a South Carolina politician that said some rather disparaging things about the Sikh community, even though the person he was actually speaking about is a Methodist. What can I say? But he would have been well served with this book, How to Be a Perfect Stranger. Now, this book is a reference book. It's not the kind of book you're going to read cover to cover, at least I never have. It helps someone go to the services of another faith and know what the appropriate behavior is expected of them, their attire, what's going to go on, so there aren't any surprises. You know what you're getting yourself into. Now, obviously, I mean, this isn't a thin book, but they can't have every single faith in the world. This is somewhat American-centric. This is the third edition of the book. I know at least there's a fourth edition available now. I'm assuming it's probably got more faiths in it or something. Maybe it did, did a little editing. But I found it a useful reference in the past, and I'm going to read you the specific faiths that are listed here, and then I'll give you a rundown of how each chapter is set up. After African American Methodist churches, Assemblies of God, Baha'i, Baptist, Buddhist, Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, Christian Science, Church of Christ Scientist, Churches of Christ, Episcopal and Anglican, they kind of lump those together, Hindu, Islam, Jehovah's Witnesses, Jewish, Lutheran, Mennonite / Amish, Methodist, Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Native American / First Nations, Orthodox churches, Pentecostal Church of God, Presbyterian, Quaker Religious Society of Friends, Reformed Church in America / Canada, Roman Catholic, Seventh-day Adventists, Sikh, Unitarian Universalists, United Church of Canada, and United Church of Christ. Now, if you live in the U.S., that list, it's 29 different faiths, is pretty much going to cover every major service that you're going to encounter. There are going to be ones that you're going to be, that are going to be more obscure, less common. But I'm thinking if you know someone who's a member of that kind of a faith, they're going to be able to give you the information you need. These are the kinds of faiths that you can walk into on a kind of cold. These are faiths that have temples or churches or synagogues or mosques that you may be welcomed into as a stranger. So each chapter is set up. First is a brief history and beliefs, and it's a couple of pages that gives you an idea of where the faith came from, some of its basic tenets, things like that. And it also talks about how many, for U.S. membership, how many are there in this particular faith, and more information, contact addresses, and numbers. Then they talk about the basic service. This is the run-of-the-mill thing that's going to be done on that particular faith's holy day, or the kind of thing that's done if it's if it's a daily or a weekly event and it's not necessarily tied to a specific day of the week. Talk about how the place is laid out physically, what is the appropriate attire to wear. For example, some faiths may require a head covering for people to have or not, that kind of thing. For example, what are the major ritual objects of the service? It gives you an idea of what kind of things are they going to be using physically during the service. What books are being used. And then it talks about guest behavior during the service. If you're a guest, this is the kind of thing that you're going to want to be expected from the church by you. Specifically, like how much is customary to contribute. You may want to know this. You may not want to contribute anything, but in case you do, this is what most people donate. After service, what happens after the service proper is finished. General guidelines and advice. Special vocabulary. In this particular case, we're talking about the African American Methodist churches, and there isn't any particular dogma and ideologies of that particular faith. Then we get to the third section, which is holy days and festivals. Runs down some of the major celebrations the faith is going to have. Life cycle events. A birth ceremony. Among Christians, that would be called a christening. And again, before ceremony, during ceremony, appropriate kind of gifts if they're expected. Are they expected to give them before or after the service, that kind of thing. And then a breakdown of the service itself. Initiation ceremony, it's the kind of thing like, an adulthood ceremony when making a transition from childhood to adulthood, in adolescence. And all the breakdown on all the different things that service may entail. A marriage ceremony, probably the most likely thing you're going to be going to another faith cold is going to be someone's wedding. Funerals and mourning, you may get asked to come to someone's funeral because they were a coworker or something like that. And the last section is home celebrations, and in this case, it's not applicable to African American Methodist denominations, but some faiths do have home ceremonies. So I find this book useful. I've used it a number of times myself. I've also flipped through it just because I was curious about something that I didn't necessarily want to look up online because I didn't necessarily know what question to ask. And having the sections in here gave me an idea. Okay, yeah, that kind of gives me what I want to know. It doesn't go quite as deep as I want. Bingo, I go to the internet and get the additional information. But this is a good starting point. It's also nice because it's more approachable to a lot of people. A lot of people aren't comfortable with looking for things online. They're not necessarily internet savvy. This book is going to be on your shelf. Pick it up, look at it. This is actually my wife's book. She brought it into our relationship, and I'm thankful for it. She used to be a reporter, and so going to different kinds of faith was something that she would encounter as part of her job. But it's a good book. I recommend it. I think I saw copies for it on Amazon used for like $6 or $7. So if you are ever going to be exposed to another faith, give this book a read.